So, I'm just beginning a book that was sent to me by Dr. Margot McKinnon entitled Dominance Theory, a Guide to Elevating the Five Dimensions of Self. And I have a copy here that she sent to me. It's not available for ordering. She brings it with her when she does presentations and talks and so forth, and she'll be here November 18th, and then she'll have a Wednesday night, November 21st program, which will be wonderful. Dr. Margot McKinnon is has a PhD from Oxford University. Smart lady. But she lives her life dedicated, she says, for the rest of my life, I will be reaching out to all university-level professors and people that have departments in big universities, because I want to bring to these organizations a sense of a greater expansion of what it is that people actually are. Because in the world today, there is a predominance of the body-mind dimension. And yet people are yearning for, they're crying out for soul-spirit oneness, because that is what it is that we actually are. But we abide within body and mind predominantly, and I gave an example of this last week with Dr. Lori Santos, who has a class that she facilitates at Yale University. It's about happiness. It's the most popular class that has ever been offered at Yale University, because people are crying out and they're yearning for soul-spirit oneness. Yale is a great institution of the mind. And yet people, young students that go there, are wanting balance. And so I thought that Dr. Margot McKinnon would be a wonderful addition to our center here. Because our center, if you haven't noticed it, is somewhat graduated now in its mission and vision. The new signage out here says Unity, a center of awakening. That's what we are, a center of awakening. Our primary mission, our primary vision for everyone in this community is to awaken to all dimensions of self. The other night, early in the morning this past week, my wife and I got up very early, and 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and I was sitting out on the couch, candle lit. And I said, come and just sit with me for a while. And she came and sat. But I recognized that that moment was a soul-spirit oneness moment. Waiting, just being, no words spoken. Just sit. Just sit with me. Because I was sitting there saying to myself, what is mine to do? What is mine to do in this life? Because, there's so much preparation that goes into even a service like this, or in our constant contact, or our website, or our social media, and all of these aspects of predominantly mind. And sometimes I wonder, well, where do I show up in all of that? And I come to a place within me that says, keep it real. These things are all tools, they're functional, they're helpful, but keep it real. Stay in your heart. Be grounded and centered in what it is that is the point of all of the advertisement, of all of the social media and all of that. What's the point? The point is for us, at least to me, to come and have an elevation of the dimensions of self that is beyond body-mind. It's about soul and spirit and oneness. That's what we're all yearning for, because that is what we truly are in our essence. So many people are so proficient at a lot of these modalities, and they're great. They're video, YouTube, all of this wonderful stuff. But what is it that feeds us? What is it that connects us, grounds us into the truth? And as I was sitting with my wife looking at the simple, ancient candlelight that has been burning in people's homes for thousands of years, it was an invitation to soul, an invitation to the Spirit. That is the core. That is the essence of what we are. And so when Dr. Margot McKinnon said, Bruce, you're primarily or predominant soul spirit, I was sitting there and I felt an affirmation of my beingness that I have not felt in a long time. Because I navigate throughout the world that is predominantly a mind-body world. Sometimes wandering in the wilderness of it and going, God, how are we gonna enliven this planet? You know, and Mary Reed the other night was saying our predominant mission at this time in the present now of human life is to see all of this differently. That yes, automation and electronics and all these things are wonderful tools, but the human race is moving into a new phase of soul-spirit oneness. And that we are all yearning for it, crying out for it, desiring it from the very depths of self. And I was thinking about that this morning, and I was like, well, what's mine to do? What's ours to do? And I said to myself, well, that's an honorable thing. That's an honorable thing. Because whenever anybody comes to me in counseling or dialogue, they may be very efficient in the world. They may have a tremendous skill set that I can't even touch. And I applaud that in them. But I oftentimes go, what's really going on? And there is a need, a quest for connection. Just as in Scripture, when the woman who had been hemorrhaging for 12 years said, if only I can just simply touch the hem of his garment, I will be healed. What does that mean metaphysically? If only the feeling nature of us can touch the actual presence and power of our own Christ nature, we will be healed of the slow leak of our life force. This is what, to me, this scripture means. Whenever we see a personage within a scripture, a woman, that is primarily a symbol of the feeling nature. Men feel deeply too, but within Scripture, it's about the feeling nature of us all. So feeling is an extremely important part of not only getting something as an idea, but it's feeling it also. And in this book, I just want to share 2 paragraphs. Dr. Margot McKinnon, like I said, has a PhD from Oxford, but before that she was a high school teacher, and she was working with this dominance theory with her students. She says, I was a high school English teacher when I came up with the dominance theory. I shared my theory with my high school students with the intent for them to poke holes in it and to determine if my theory was valid for the adolescent experience. The body-mind dominant students found the theory quite logical. They could see themselves in it. Some, however, were uncertain that the human being actually had a spirit living inside of them, a spirit that looked out their eyes at the world and had distinct capabilities different from their body and mind. Once the body and mind dominant students cleared the classroom after the bell, the quiet, unassuming, often invisible spirit-dominant students hung around the blackboard where I had drawn out my theory. One said, "Are you a mind reader?" Some of them asked. "You just told me exactly what goes on inside me. I never knew why I felt so alone and sometimes so sad." Many of my spirit-dominant students were failing school, designated learning disabled or behavioral, or simply disengaged with life. I shared with these students that life is a process of living out one's exquisiteness. This means developing the life their spirit wants to live. What happened next surprised me. They made a commitment to develop all 5 dimensions of self. Their engagement in school increased and their marks went up. To the students who found meaning in this new theory, who encouraged me to write my book, and who checked in from time to time with me to make sure I wasn't slacking in expanding my personal 5 dimensions in their greatest potential, I owe you all a huge thank you. So, you know, there's this whole aspect of young people and people in general that are soul spirit dominant that sometimes feel like they're strangers in a strange land of body-mind predominance. And I'm not saying, we all need a body and we all cultivate the strengths of our mind and our capacity of mind. Very, very important. And Margot McKinnon said at one point in her life, she had a health challenge. And I won't go into what that is because, well, you'll read about it or hear about it from her when she comes. But she went to the doctor, and the surgeon wanted to surgically remove this immediately. And she said, well, give me 2 weeks. And she went home, and she really tuned in internally. And her spirit, not her body, but her spirit said, you don't take care of yourself very well. You run yourself ragged. You rarely do anything nice for yourself. I don't like living in this body anymore, so I'm leaving. She asked her spirit, if I take better care of myself and make the human experience more pleasurable, will you stay? Yes, it answered. So you would presume, perhaps, that if she checked in with her body, that her body would give her this feedback. But the point is that her spirit, her life force, her soul, had its requirements while living in the physical. Sometimes in spiritual work, there may be an evaluation of the human body as an illusion, ultimately some illusion. But in this context, there is a whole focus on that these 5 dimensions of self are all to be embraced. So in this new time that we're entering into more and more, there is this focus on honoring all parts of self. Within a week, that health challenge disappeared from Dr. McKinnon's life because she paid attention to her spirit. She started to treat herself better. She started to do nice things for herself and love herself in her humanity, which is so important as a holistic way of looking at life, because oftentimes if we're body predominant, when we get up in the morning, sitting in front of a candle and wanting your wife to sit next to you, not saying anything for 20 minutes, could be seen as a complete waste of time. I could be at the gym, doing the elliptical machine, reading my email, and the little platform that they have in front of me. I could be doing business, for crying out loud. I don't want to waste my time. So if we're body predominant, then we're forgetting completely about our soul spirit. But if we're soul spirit dominant, the challenge is to continue to work with and honor the intellect and the mind, and work out and eat right foods and all of that. And the whole point of all of these dimensions of self is leading us to one of the other dimensions: oneness. Oneness is the experience of the divine, of which we are all part. We are all a part. So it's about balance. Years ago in Sacramento, California, 2002, I was in my first church, and I was invited to give the Sunday message. 300-400 people in the room, and I shared about my dear friend, Jack Lemmon. Y'all remember Jack Lemmon? Jack Lemmon had just made his physical transition, and his last movie was Tuesdays with Morrie, and he played Morrie Schwartz. He was a teacher. He was a college teacher. And I always remember in the film where Maury was talking to Mitch Albom, who came to see him every Tuesday because it was their time. Maury said, you know, as I moved to my transition, because he had a very serious disease and he was about to make his transition, he says, you know, the more and more I'm with this whole physical body and this life experience, the more precious it is. How precious the physical life experience is, and how much I'll miss it. So he was close to feeling soul spirit, and also had a cognition with mind that his physical body was really, really important for being on the planet. So what is ours to do? My response to that is to love all of it. Love all of it. And last week, I brought in some affirmations that have to do with divine love, of allowing divine love to bless and heal all of these relationships, these dimensions of self. Because we all have these issues, or ability or inability, seeming to allow it and then feeling stuck or blocked or whatever. And you know, to me, it's all about the dimensions lining up and feeling good on all of these levels: physical, mental, soul, spirit, and oneness. The answer, the treatment that is at least predominant within my consciousness, is the application of love to all of it, all aspects of life. So I would invite you, I'm going to state these affirmations once, and then I invite you to say them. You can either say them out loud or to yourself. I am made of divine love. Together?
I am made of divine love.
By divine love. For divine love. As divine love. Divine love is the path. Divine love is the way. Divine love knows the path. The path is for divine love. I'm hearing about 98% women's voices. Huh? You got a high voice? I wrote down, the good news is that you here today are divine love. Everything else is an imagining. You know, one thing that Mary Reed said on Wednesday night, it was quite profound for those that were there. I was quite moved by her presence. She said, you know, she said, I had this mystical experience that before the universe sprang forth as life, it was simply unformed thought, I am goodness, and then it burst forth. We call it the Big Bang. It's astounding. what did she say was in the words that were awareness cherishing itself? Thank you, Jen. Awareness just cherishing itself. And then there was a point in consciousness where it said, I am goodness. And that was the point of all of creation. Amazing stuff. So in ending, I would just ask us to do a little bit of a exercise. It's always good to take something home with you. Close your eyes for just a second and ask yourself, what is the most challenging thing that's up for you in your life right now? Could be relationship, could be health, could be prosperity, other things. And just keep it to yourself. What's the most challenging thing that you are facing right now? If you have it, it's usually quite close. And let's create a space within the field of this room and within the field of ourselves where you simply give it to divine love. Whatever it is, don't make it wrong. Just give it to divine love. And your mind may say, well, yes, but. Let's just set aside that. You have a clear communication with divine love right now. You can just give it. Give it to divine love. And have an expectation of good. That this is resolved. It is taken care of. When you leave here, there is a wonderful breakthrough, dissolution of old forms, and a new beginning. So what is ours to do? Just give it to love. Love's got it, and love's got you. Thank you.